So what are we going to eat when we're living underwater?
Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
So I'm kind of on this little bit of a theme here over the past several shorts of just looking at life in and around underwater habitats and underwater living, which we should be because that's kind of like the focus of what we're doing here. But I wanted to diverge. I wanted to talk about food because why not? But it's one of the things that do come up, and we have been asked the question before. It's like, well, are you going to be eating fish and stuff like that? And I don't like fish. I have this policy that I joke about that I said basically if it lives in the water, I don't eat it type of thing. I don't like seafood. I don't like fish. So it's one of those struggles when people do it. They think it's crazy that I want to live underwater. I love the ocean, but yeah, I don't want to eat anything that lives in it. So that begs the question is what do we eat down there? Now, there's different ways you can go about this. Is at what phase are we living underwater? Are you still coming and going on a daily basis to land? At that point in time, it doesn't really matter because you can go eat on land if you want or have some groceries there and you're fine. Even that translates to when we're maybe even out a little ways and self-sustained. I think it's going to be decades down the road before we ever get to a point where it's even a question, because as long as you are readily can get to land within a reasonable amount of time, you can bring everything to you. You can store underwater. Now, I think some of the questions and some of the problems is going to be how do you prepare it? You're not going to be able to have propane. You're not going to have, all that kind of stuff because you're going to not want to be burning those gases and stuff underwater. Everything's going to have to be electric, so it's going to change the way you prepare meals and what you make. But I really don't think there's that big of a concern. Now, obviously, to be self-sustained and self-sufficient, you're going to want to try to do as much as you want down there. And that's where, aquaponics and hydroponics and other types of growing your own food underwater come into play. And maybe that is where soy meat comes in and other stuff along those lines down the road. And yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different discoveries, how I think it's mollusks and are super high in protein and give you everything you need. And maybe if we can find a way of making some of these foods a little bit more palatable, these seafoods a little more palatable to the average person's taste, where it's consistency wise and flavor wise similar to meat, similar how they have done with soy and other vegan and vegetarian based foods. But for the most part, I think that plant life isn't going to be an issue. You're going to be able to grow all that down there. You'll be able to ship in food as need be. I mean, when we're looking at, the larger platform where it's modular and you've got a bunch of different pods and stuff like that, you could have a whole entire freezer pod pretty much. It's just deep freeze with meat that can last for months and months on end. So I really don't think it's that big of a question as people tend to be. I think it's one of the easier things to solve about living underwater, even though it seems to be, there's major questions that come up. First off is where do you go to the bathroom? How do you go to the bathroom? Another one is how do you eat and how do you get there? And so those are the three big questions that always come to rise. So if we can tackle those, let's do that. But to sum this up, I don't even think it's an issue. If we are building, if the goal is to bring as many people underwater and help them ease into living underwater, again, this is going to be a barrier. If your food that you're used to is not going to be there, then it doesn't pass the grandma test that the Seasetting Institute coined for me with one of my speeches, where if my grandma can't come and live there, then it's not ready. And that goes to every aspect of it, including the food. So this is going to be a short one today. So the question, I guess, boils down to is, what food would you have to have, could you not live without in your underwater habitat?